I had a really long work session today. I've basically been working like all day, and I actually recorded like quite a bit this morning, and it just didn't get saved. Like it saved, but the sound didn't save, which is fine because I was yapping for like an hour about it, but it really can be shown in 2 seconds. And I was already like, this doesn't feel like it's of much substance because I mean, I did a lot of important things, but I was in a really bad mood. So I wasn't being funny nor interesting nor giving much interesting information. I was just like, I'm so grumpy, etc., etc. So, yeah, it's good. Nobody needed to see all that anyways. So I'm just gonna give a really brief summary of what I did this morning. It was incredibly important work. It just wasn't, I wasn't like talking very well about it. So let me show you that. And then after I should give you the work session too that we had. That was I was a lot more interesting and by the afternoon because I was in a good mood again. Basically, so I found out from somebody yesterday that ChatGPT free, not only does it you can't use like you can't do as much stuff on it, like as in like you can't send as many messages, but it's Pro is also smarter. I didn't really have money for Pro like consistently before, so it's fine that it's like it's good that I got it at this point. I think this was the point where I really needed it anyways. Before I wasn't doing as many complex things, but I did finally get Pro this morning. I had everything that was on this one moved to the next like another tab. And then I gave it like a summary of everything that I had been doing in my neural network. I was like, make sure that you're basing everything off of this text, which is the CA3 to CA1 computational model text I was using. All be done in Nango. So then it wrote me this code. It took me a second to run that, but I figured it out. I made sure that it changed everything to the numbers that I had from the Sprague Dolly rats. Um, and it did like convert everything to those numbers. I just want to keep it biologically realistic and relevant to this project that I'm doing, like to the study that I'm basing it off of, and they use this rat type. So that's why. So it wrote that code for me. I gave it an ACH like a threshold scale for the ACH, but actually later in this video you'll see I actually like fine-tuned the scale. I didn't run it again yet, but I was understanding the percentages a bit wrong, or I think this was like what ChatGPT wrote for me, but it wasn't actually like accurate 100% based on the rat models I was reading. So that gets a little bit fine tuned later. And then so then we had to play around with it like quite a bit. Oh, and yeah, so I basically like incorporated like ACH stuff like that I didn't have before. Like I incorporated in with these sort of trauma memory things. Okay. So this was actually my second run of this because the first time it didn't have any like so this is the acetylcholine dynamics little this is the little like ACH dynamics graph it made for me. It didn't look like this before. Actually, the first time around, it was only just line, bump of a line down. And I was like, this looks really wrong. It's so square. And then I remember that I hadn't add delayed decay yet. This is also going to get fine tuned later in the video, even though I haven't run it again yet. But I was just like playing around with it. I didn't have the full numbers yet. That's going to be later on. But this is what it ended up building for me. So it's pretty interesting. It's just like, okay, assume like sort of like the first event, the second event, third event, which is the shock, and then down. This is not how it's going to look at the end at all. It's going to be significantly more complex than this, and this isn't like accurate to the trajectory of the experiment I'm running. But this is essentially sort of what it's going to look like. It's going to work something like this, just not as square. But help seeing it like and looking at it and being like, this doesn't look quite right. Like that helped me a lot because I was like, okay, wait, I'm forgetting or like I need to fine tune this. Um, so yeah, that's basically what I did this morning, summarized, and we'll go into the next work session. Okay, this is work session number 2 of the day. It's like 4 p.m. I wasn't gonna work on this more, but first of all, I'm enjoying myself, but also I just want to get it done. The reason I don't usually work too much at a time, like I just do like a bit a day, is because I feel like after some time, like it starts to get like a bit tiring, or I feel like I don't make like my connections aren't being made as well. Like I feel a little bit foggy. So I try to space it out and just even if I'm like I'm enjoying myself, but I try to just like pace myself. But yeah, I feel fine today, and I feel like I want to keep going and um see what I can get done. Also, it's my birthday in 10 days. I'm turning 24 in, yeah, like 10 days. And it would be very nice to feel like I got a lot done before my birthday. Like, it's done by my birthday. That would be so nice. Obviously, the paper will definitely not be written by then, but like, okay, I finished the actual neural network before my birthday. It's like my birthday present to myself because I'm very like, I don't know if superstitious is the right word, but I actually, what's wrong with my hair? Hell, it's a bit silly, but I do live my life by like astrology a little bit, just a little bit, in the sense that every solar return year like carries a certain energy to it, and I feel like I just want to go into almost like I want to go into my year with into my next year with like a different energetic story. Like this has really been the story of me being 23. So I started the year actually finishing up undergrad thesis, my old undergrad thesis. I finished that like in November. That's when I started getting everything together, like in terms of like, oh, I think this might be like a cortical attention issue sort of thing. Then I followed the line down. And then all in the beginning of being 23, I was applying for master's degree programs. I applied to one PhD program just to see like why not? Like obviously I didn't get accepted, which I fully like. I mean, I'm not complaining about that, but that's where I was putting together. Like, started reading about the sharp wave ripples and stuff, and then since like I feel like it's just been a consistent effort like all year, all this year of me doing this project. Now I am turning 24 in like 10 days, and I feel like I'm close to done. So I feel like I could probably finish at least a neural network by the time I'm 24, and then I can start the new year on like a good energy, and be like that part is done, and now I'm like just probably writing it, maybe. I highly doubt that I'll write it. There's no way. But who knows? Because actually, now that I think about it, the results section, I mean, the method section will kind of write itself. Results section is just sort of like a list of everything that happened. That doesn't like that wouldn't I mean, obviously a rough draft at least I could probably have that done in like, I don't know, maybe 2 days. I don't know. We'll see. I highly, highly doubt that I'll finish it before my birthday, like fully. Definitely not. But I could at least get the neural network finished and be like, that's done. So, anyways, off we go to this next thing that I'm doing. Okay, so where we left off, basically I just finished this little the stage, meaning all the C1, C3 stuff plus ACH dynamics. This one obviously you can see is I think was significantly more sophisticated and obviously had a lot more to it. But I'm not fully 100% happy with everything yet. Like I want to make sure I want to get really nitpicky with it, but if I can just get it to like everything is in there, then that's like a start. I'm gonna ask which part of the code is like the 1D line. Okay. So the 3-channel EC-like episodic drive, cage chamber drive. It's hard because I can visualize what's happening, but I don't sometimes the language is like a bit beyond me, so it's a bit hard to fully like grasp if I'm getting this right. No, 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 no. I don't want I don't want them to walk because that's not what's happening in the experiment. Okay, so I had something that I wanted to do. Okay, this is the rat day. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna write down the ACH level at each of these pieces. I really want to like anchor in on the texts with like all the text I can find on this exact thing in rats. So the acetylcholine in the rats. Oh, interesting. Actually, what happened is that immediately after going in the restraining device, it increased to 168%, decreased slightly to 149%. So I'm guessing that after being in the restraining device for a while, they kind of got used to it. Like it wasn't as shocking to them, so the arousal amount went down. So it's actually not, it went straight. It actually like that means that I should have like a time period. Like, okay, minute one, essentially, like minute one, 168%, minute two. What I'm actually going to do, I know it's probably not 100%, the numbers might not be 100% accurate. I'm thinking I'm still going to have it like have some kind of slow decrease to this. So I'm going to ask the neural network to like decrease it like gradually. It probably won't capture the exact numbers, but it will like it will probably at least it still gives the effect. Okay, this is what's interesting is that they said the addition of the tail shocks did not substantially alter ACH output, although exposure to the stressor may have offset a decline in ACH release in response to restraint. I'm a little bit confused by this text, so I'm actually going to pop it into ChatGPT for a bit and like mess around with it on my iPad. What I would really like to know is what happens when somebody has a flashback. Does the acetylcholine increase? I would assume, right? Or if they have some kind of exposure to the stressor again. That's what I'm thinking is like PTSD related thing, but I can't measure that fully yet. Okay, so now I'm understanding. So, because I was wondering like why, I think I was just having trouble wrapping my head around it. So this is what's really, really interesting, actually. And they mentioned this without me saying anything. So after they were released, actually the acetylcholine went to 193% of baseline. So even this, it was more stressful to leave the stressor than it was to be in the stressor, which is really interesting. And that, I feel like that's definitely, oh my gosh. So actually in the 15 minutes after, so by like minutes 30, it had like 193% increase. Super interesting. It's super interesting that that happens. Like why? I guess they're, what my thinking is? Probably when you're in the stressor, like obviously it's stressful, but once you escape the stressor, like let's say a tiger has you in its mouth, right? If you're a rat, tiger has you in its mouth, right? You're stressed. The thing is that once the tiger lets you go, you have to run. Like you have to make a run for it, right? So I feel like it makes sense for, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, now you got to run, 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 get away from it. So it makes total sense, doesn't it? My gosh, that's so interesting. It totally makes sense in that context. Like, why would it have gone up that much? Because that's the time when you actually have to get away from the stressor. But how does it work in humans? I don't know. Let's see. I'm like, actually, like that gave me such like excitement. Like I was like, oh, that's why. Okay. Probably it starts to go down while they're restrained because, well, I guess they get used to it. So the love, but they also probably start to get like, okay, this isn't, I'm not going to be able to escape. Like it's like, so what? I don't know. The levels dipped down a bit, down to about 149%. So they said that the tail shocks didn't add stress, but it probably stopped things from getting more, like from lowering more. So it went up to about 193%. Let me make sure that's like at the 15-minute mark. I think it makes sense that people would have like an extended period of time where they don't remember the stressor in that context because your body is like now you're in full survival mode for a minute because you escaped. I don't know. Does that make sense? And then it's like, okay, now it can go down. Insane. I have to make sure I mention that in my paper. Today's video is literally just going to be essentially like a notebook because I'm gonna watch this video again and it's gonna go like I'm gonna watch these again when I'm writing my paper so I can see everything. Okay, yeah, that's so interesting. After release, it went up so much. It's almost 200% more than the control group. I'm actually getting like I'm not getting chills, but I'm getting like this kind of like oh kind of vibe. You know what I mean? Like, oh, at minute 30, essentially, there's like 193% increase. So this is while they're still being restrained. They're about to be let go. This is they're being restrained. This is restrained plus tail shocks. How do I get this to come together, like in the memory context? So this is they were released. They were released into the plexiglass chamber. This is what's hard is that they're gonna be in the plexiglass chamber twice. So how can I evoke their memory properly? So this means that the medium inescapable arousal should definitely not include any type of restraint because the restraint made it go up to 168% immediately. So that's like a high. I would say that's probably high arousal. Okay, and this is the crazy thing too. So then this within the hour of release, so within like 45 minutes later, I would assume, it went down significantly, but it never returned to baseline. It was always above. So 115% to 193%, 139%. So it was always above the control, but never like, this is so interesting. I need to figure out how to put this into like the actual thing. I don't know, into the study. But this is how the numbers went. Let me see if you can tell me the control. Can you tell me the control? I see. So the control was actually just them doing nothing. Like it wasn't, they didn't compare it to other rats. They just had the rats, like they just compared it to the rats baseline. Each 1 hour total before the rats were put into restraint. And then they averaged those baselines. Okay, so we're gonna have just unrestrained, no shock, just sitting. It's hard because I don't know, like, were they learning anything? Probably not. I was probably like just a low arousal state. There's nothing to remember. And then they went into this situation. This is so interesting. The 193% increase gets me hyped to see how this is gonna go. I want to copy and paste something that I'm gonna ask it to like look into or like explain to me better to make sure that I fully understand this and that it's not something I need to reflect in my paper or in my neural network. This is so I'm getting really excited right now. Like it's getting close to I can't wait to actually test it. Like I want to see what's gonna happen really, really bad. What was I looking at? It was in the discussion. Oh, what? That's not what I wanted you to. Oh my gosh. I'm really wondering because I wanted to have a medium arousal kind of state because I want to test that little inverted thing. I don't know, inverted triangle, whatever kind of thing, whatever inverted U shape, the inverted U shape. But we're gonna see. Like I said, I do actually know a study that has a medium arousal state. The thing is that they're doing something completely different. Like they're not doing this exact thing. So I'm gonna ask ChatGPT if it thinks it's still appropriate or if that's because usually you don't want to change too much. Like you don't want to make it a bit crazy. Though I did read just recently, like 2 days ago, John O'Keefe's place sells text and I need to look back over it, but it wasn't in the same kind of style where they just like they changed one minute thing kind of vibe. Like it wasn't okay, I'm gonna look back at it, but it wasn't like, oh, they were doing a million different things, but I was like, maybe it's not a horrible like it's not the horrible thing. Like maybe I can just compare anyways. Like run a few different like I don't know. This is really interesting. So basically after they even though they were stressed out, the synaptic excitability didn't increase. It actually got decreased. So the ACH is surging, but excitability and plasticity are blunted. This is so interesting right now. This is so interesting. This is 100%. This is crazy. This is insane. Okay, so the brain may record fragments of the events without flexible. This is really insane, leading to strong intrusive sensory. I'm almost getting like this creepy vibe, like almost like chills, but for my life. Chills for like what does this mean for my life? I don't know. Like not like my personal life, but like this project is actually like this is insane. Like this is actually starting to be like insane right now. This is really unique or like different. I don't know. What's gonna happen? My gosh. Okay, so let me actually feed this to ChatGPT. This is exactly what I was wanting, and this goes back to that U-shape function, doesn't it? That I'm trying to understand how to incorporate. Like when things get too arousing, you don't actually remember them as well. And this is probably why. This is really interesting. Yeah, I'm actually starting to get like quite nervous because I'm like, oh, not only it's like why how am I here, but like this is insane. Like this is like I don't know. Okay, like what is happening kind of thing. I just want it to be finished so I just even see what happens. Like I'm horribly horribly curious to see what's going to happen. It's good because now it doesn't seem really random that I'm like incorporating this stuff. Like this is actually in the study, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just throwing a bunch of rules in there. It's like, no, this is actually like actually been an important way that ACH actually works. So it's not like, oh my gosh, this answers so many things. Because like for example, like I was thinking, it's like, okay, yeah, those arousal rules for binding and stuff are like legit, but it's like, but what if like other neuromodulators have like an effect or something? But they're looking at ACH and this happened with the ACH increase. That makes sense. Okay, let's make this that drop straight into your nigga model. Okay. Okay, we need to add more numbers. Yeah, okay. Book temple gain. I'm gonna have it write all these rules down for me in a list at one point because I don't know them. Ah, my God. My God. Anyways, now what I think I should do in other papers, they actually had they had like a similar length of stress. Obviously, I think that what's it called? The study was built differently, but in a situation that wasn't restraint stress, it was just being handled, like your fur being stroked for 10 to 15 minutes. They didn't see that post stress effect, but I'll just mention that. I don't think I think like I'm looking at this study, so I'm not gonna worry too much about, well, other studies didn't see that same thing. It's like, well, they saw it, so I'm just going to keep it like that. Okay, there's another study that has a mild stressor. There's actually like there's a lot of studies on this, like ACH and then like stress in rats. One that had a 2 hour stress procedure, like intense stress for 2 hours, they said a remarkably similar amount observed in that study, so of like ACH response. And I did look at that study, and yeah, it was even like the numbers were like eerily similar, like 1.5 increase to like 100, like 150%, something like that. And this one was like 168. And then I'm gonna go to that study that where they talk about a mild stressor. I think I actually downloaded it already, but yeah, 30. See if I already have it, which I totally might. Yeah, I have it. I just haven't read it yet. So in this study, they basically, you know what? I'm not even gonna focus too much on medium stress. I wanted to incorporate that and see like is there like a difference in recall? And I would like to incorporate that, but here's the problem I think right now for me is that the study I'm looking at was restraint stress. These other studies are not restraint stress, even though they're medium stress. They're like handling, like being pet, essentially, like the rats being pet. The thing is that the another study with like a 15-minute, like they sort of did a similar thing, but the rats weren't restrained, they were just being pet. They didn't see that increase in acetylcholine after they released the rat, you know? So I don't want to say that these are like comparable, because if they didn't see that in another study, it's like, well, can I compare those two different types of traumas? Not all trauma is the same. Obviously, even in human beings, I think every trauma has different responses. So it's, yeah, I think I'm just gonna, I don't know if it's like 100% worth it, though I will say that in another study that they looked at with, I don't know, let's see if they have like the decrease in like what happens after they released it in this one. I'm sorry, I'm gonna actually upload this one because I want to just ask questions directly, because I'm a little bit nervous right now, and I think my brain is not in like reading mode. My brain is like, oh my God, what's happening mode. So I'd rather just ask some questions. This is a very different study. Okay, very different. But we're gonna ask it a little bit of questions and see like what we can suss out, and if it's like an appropriate comparison sort of thing. I really wanted a comparison group of medium stress. It would have been really nice. But obviously I can't get one where they're doing this exact thing. Like there's not like a good comparison for this. So that's the tough part, essentially. Okay, so quick summary. They did it in 10-minute intervals. Had the baseline levels. All stimuli increased ACH in both hippocampus and cortex. And the hippocampus increases were significant for visual, auditory, and tactile, but not olfactory, so smelling. And in the cortex, we don't care about the cortex, we care about the hippocampus. Tactile stimulation, pushing the neck further. What am I thinking right now? Because like I said, I was talking to a lot of people that had like are doing research on like functional disorders, I think is the name. And in these studies, obviously ACH can increase in different lobes of the brain. And I'm looking at the hippocampus because I'm looking at memory, but also they usually did increase, for example, in the cortex. And like maybe ACH increase in certain places would have a different dissociative effects on different things, that would cause like other issues. Obviously I'm looking at memory. So if it's increasing in the hippocampus, that will make like a memory issue. But maybe if it's increasing in like, I don't know, the cortex, it could have like a different issue. That's my thinking, but I don't know. Like if it's too high, because it did increase in other places. I just haven't cared about what's happening in those places. The other thing I'm thinking, I don't know if this is like a bit more icky, but I thought I could just get like a medium arousal amount and then sort of create a situation adjacent to this that would just evoke medium stress. Like, does it matter because it's a computer? Does it really matter if in real life that particular scenario would evoke more stress or not? You know what I mean? Like does it matter that like, oh, maybe in real life you wouldn't actually get that number, but you still like I'm still looking at the impact of medium arousal still, and just gonna have like a percentage that would evoke medium arousal. It's a bit tricky though. Okay, so they measured the acetylcholine levels when the rats were like usually asleep, resting quietly, or grooming at low activity during baseline. This is my thinking that's a bit tough, is that they could have been consolidating in this time period, you know? That was probably like really low ACH in general, you know, obviously because this is like quiet wakefulness and non-REM sleep. So they might have been taking the amount that was happening during during consolidation rather than just like encoding but not very high encoding, which is probably the same thing for this one. But that doesn't impact the study. It impacts how I'm building my neural network and the percentage amount that I want to. So one of them had intermittent buzzer, flashing white light, peppermint soaked swab and cage, and then nylon brushing the fur on the back of the neck, each for 20 minutes. And they measured all the behaviors. They waited until ACH had returned to baseline and then collected 6 new baseline samples before presenting the next stimulus. So the lights they said are like low to medium arousal, like alert waking. They weren't freezing or flinching. The smelling was like also low to medium. Auditory, medium to high arousal because they flinched. And then the brushing on the neck, they froze immediately. I'm just a bit like, is it gonna get too out of whack if I ask it to do some, like if I have like another group that's getting a medium arousal, but it's not like a similar setup. So before it was stable at just 100%. During stimulus, they were up like 120%. 20 minutes. I'm a bit confused. I would say I should probably use tactile because the shocks are kind of tactile. I don't know if I'm going to use it yet, but just to compare. So here we have a little table with all of the numbers. So baseline is so an hour before. So in the just tactile stimulus one, it was just 100%, obviously baseline. Restraint, baseline, just 100%. We have during stimulus, the tactile stimulus went up to 150% during that 20 minutes. And then during the restraint on the tail shocks, it went up to 168%. So then 15 minutes into the stimulus, they didn't say this one went to 149%. What's interesting is that, well, this is actually about the same amount. Then tail shock period, they didn't have tail shocks, obviously, maintained at about 150%. So it just stayed at 150% the whole time. And then after release, they had about 110 to 20% in the 20 minutes after. They had 100. This is what's really interesting and why I want to compare it. So in this one, it went down, it declined. In this one, it went up after the release. So they had very different things happening. But in the other study that they had higher, we're gonna compare this with another study. We're doing like a deep dive right now. This one, 1 hour post, 100%. This one, it was about baseline by 1 hour, but it wasn't fully baseline. It was like 115 to 139%. We're going to throw in another study. This is very useful right now, but we're going to throw in another study. I feel like, you know that meme? I feel like this is me right now. Like me with all the different things. I'm like, if this is how they all go together and this is what's happening. Like, this is literally how I feel right now. So, we're going to throw in another study, and that's going to be the one that had like 2 hours or something. It's kind of been the most exciting part of this whole thing so far is doing like the actual like building of the method in this context. It's been so fun. Like putting the actual rat stuff in it is like really interesting. Okay, I also read another one of rats under stress, and this one they were in cold stress. But I honestly, even though I'm going to talk about it probably in my intro, I don't know if I don't want to really use it. I don't think so. Some of them have different things. I think this one said they saw a decrease in acetylcholine afterwards. Forced swimming made the, I don't know. That one they had them doing forced swimming and ACH went down in like all of them. It's like, why? That's what I'm saying. I think every trauma is probably different or every stressor, but this study they referenced like multiple different studies in there, and all of those had the ACH go up. So it's quite interesting that this other group, well, actually, no, I need to look at it again. But when I actually talked to ChatGPT about it, it said that it probably went down because while they were in the stressor, it went up so much that they, it was like it was something like that. It was like it actually like pointed to the fact that the ACH had gone up, probably during the swimming. it was quite interesting. It went to like the enzymes and things, and I do think forced swimming is probably the most stressful. It was like it was like swimming in the cold for like 20 minutes. It was like a really intense stressor. And I do think that that's significantly different than these. And also the thing is they microwave them right after. So in these studies I'm looking at now, they actually didn't microwave them. They just let them go on with their day. So I think it's just everything was like very different in that one to the point where it's like it's very interesting, but I don't think that it's gonna be like I'm gonna mention it, but I'm not gonna use it as like a baseline. Yay, now I'm in such a better mood. Literally, this project lifts my mood so much. I genuinely feel like it has improved my mental health like so much to do this. Like it's actually made me better in like a lot of ways. I feel like my mind is more silent and I feel like healthier, you know, because I feel like I needed like it's been such a good use of like my energy and it's like everything. Like it's been validating. It's been like I feel like it's built like focus, it's built like dedication, faith in myself, determination, like all these different things. Like it genuinely I think the improvement in my mental health in the last like 4 or 5 months has been like off the walls, like so good. And I genuinely think it's because of this project. Yeah, I think I needed that validation of like you're not insane. Like I feel like genuinely this project is like it's been like a medication for me, you know what I mean? I wonder if this is something that would be appropriate to include in my paper, like as a table in my paper. I think it's not a bad thing to put in, right? It's not like my research is other people's research. I've never really written a research article, but I think this would be a really cool thing to include in my paper, like this comparison, and include some of these different papers, you know, because it's really interesting looking at it like this. And then I might go out and actually do something with my day just for a bit. At the very least, I'll go into the actual, like, I'm still in Portugal, so I'll go into the city and just drink a hot chocolate or something. Just to say I got my money's worth from the trip. Because I've really been in here working on this like all day. I mean, I did other stuff, but yeah. And I also like genuinely from the bottom of my heart want to work on my real job. But I've just been so like, oh my God, like this is like I feel like this has been developing so much right now. Actually like I actually enjoy my real job. Like I find it fun. I'm working for mental health stuff there too, but in a completely different context. I'm doing like marketing and I actually like it. Like I like the activity of it. It feels like creative and fun, but it's like it's coincided with the most intense part of my project right now. So I've been like really like I don't know if hyper fixated is the right word, but I've been really like focused on this. So it's been like, okay, work on this more. And it's like, okay, you should be working on your actual real life job. But I think we're gonna be fine. I mean, we're doing good right now with everything. Like it's not like I'm behind or something, but I just want to do more for it, you know? Used in, but this feels like my future. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like I need to put that work in towards like my future. Both of them are in a way, but you know what I'm saying? It's like this is like my dream life kind of thing where it's like I got to put that work into like my dream life. So in this one also the ACH went up. I'm gonna ask the numbers. Also like I want treatment for this. Like I want my own thing that I'm building. You know what I mean? Like I've been working on like an imaginary therapy for this recently, and I'm like I want it myself for me. I feel like I'm making my own DIY therapy for myself or like medication. Okay, so all of them had this is the one where they were restrained for 120 minutes. 100% at the quiet baseline. So during stimulus, so this one they were restrained for 120 minutes. At the peak, it was 150%, which was about 20 to 30 minutes after they were in the chamber. So that's interesting. It's a bit different. 15 to 30 minutes, that was when it was at they just say peak. So I guess it went up to 150%. They didn't go into detail. Then mid restraint, it returned to around 100% despite restraint. Yeah, they probably, I mean, if they were in there for 120 minutes, like they probably just got used to the boxes, you know? They were probably just like whatever. And then end of restraint, they stayed at baseline. But what's interesting is in this one, after they left, it it surged again to the amount that they had in the plexiglass chamber. Again, because I think after they escaped, they were probably like, run, get away from here. Like, you know what I mean? And then declined back towards baseline. So that's pretty interesting. I think that's definitely has something to do with the restraint stress. I think that's probably why they didn't see that with like the tactile stress because like, well, who knows? Maybe it's still a similar feeling for the rats, but I think exactly it's like once you're out of the restraint, you probably get the surge to like run away, like you've been trapped all this time and then it's like, go get out of here, is how I imagine it going through their heads. So maybe they don't have that as much but why wouldn't they have it for the other ones? I don't know. I also have like a few questions like that I would ask about this study with the tactile stimulus. It's like, for example, like, okay, some of it was just like touching the rat or giving it like a little bit of what were they doing? Brushing the fur on the neck. They obviously didn't like it, but it's like, have they experienced that before? Have they ever been touched before? Is that like a super out there thing? Like, I just have these questions. Like, is it something that obviously it stresses them, but maybe they've been handled before, so it wasn't like completely like, oh my God, what's happening? Or because then it's like if you've been touched before, you would know like, okay, then I'm gonna be let go. So it's not like the runaway kind of vibe, but maybe not. I don't know. So this is a pretty good table right here. Pretty good table. Pretty interesting to see this all like connected. I'm tempted to put the one where the rats was swimming, but this one was like extreme. Like they had like 1 hour of cold stress or 24 hours of cold stress. And then it resulted in a significant decrease of ACH, but it was the activity of the, I think it was like the enzyme creating the ACH was significantly increased. Like the different enzymes were actually significantly increased. But what the paper said is maybe what ChatGPT said when I asked it, like, why is that? It said what might be the case is that it was those enzymes were being produced so much during the forced swimming that it was like the turnover rate, like the turnover rate was like really, really high, which is why it was producing the enzyme so much. It was something like that. It was something along those lines. So I don't want to include that because I think it's quite different from the other ones. And I think they didn't look at the ACH levels until the rats were literally microwaved. Like they took them out, they microwaved them. So they weren't actually looking like it wasn't as, I think, as solid. It was done in the 80s. The rest of these were like 96, 91. So I actually think 95. I actually think the technology had probably changed by then, so they could get different results. I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT, like, what do you think of, okay, I'll show you. I'm gonna say, what would the world's best advisor say? Like, let's make up the most amazing advisor we could possibly think of. Like, they're like multiple PhDs. What else? Extensive. We're gonna make them like wow, this is the most amazing advisor. Extensive research experience in what? Computational psychiatry, everything. Computational psychiatry. This is my future. This is the future I'm manifesting. I don't know why they have to have multiple PhDs, but it just felt like a nice little touch. Like they're just that smart. Like, psychiatry, neuroscience, psychology, expert in trauma. See, this is the future, like this is my future LinkedIn tagline, by the way. Come see my LinkedIn in like, I don't know, 40 years. This is what I'm gonna have written. I'm gonna say world's best advisor, multiple PhDs, extensive research experience in computational psychiatry. That's what it's gonna sound like. Experience in trauma, also really pretty, and just a cool person in general. This is it. I was gonna say. Just a cool person in general. Like you'd want to be friends with them. Wait, no, 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 no. We need them to be strict. But they have like really, they have like like professional boundaries. So they're very professional at work. When you want that advice from your future self. Just kidding. So they're very professional at work. Advise me to do. This is insane. I'm wondering if it doesn't really matter as long as the numbers are similar. Okay. Let's see what this advisor would say. I hope she throws in just how pretty she is. Okay. That's what I really want is whether there's that U-shape effect. Yes, exactly. I'm gonna like after this, I'm just gonna go on a long walk and have like a real think about this. Like just let it process. Like, what do I want to do with this study? That's what I'm thinking. I really want that medium arousal group. This is my problem. So I can't, okay. So they're saying it is good. That's what I was gonna do in the first place. This is my problem right now, is that just being in the restraint already increased everything to 168%. So I can't have the restraint be like the I can't have the restraint be the medium arousal. Like it can't just be because the tail shocks actually didn't make as much of a difference as you would think. But then the thing is that you'd have to be something like it have to be literally be something completely different. So you have the same unrestrained no shock, just saying low arousal. And this is like almost just like a baseline group. I wanted to have one group that was just like nothing happening. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing really happening, like completely low arousal to see like there obviously wouldn't be that much to remember at all, which I think goes back to that Yerkes-Dodson thing. And then we have a last group, which would be like a medium arousal group, comparison group. And so let's go back to the other section. Let's go back. Here's my problem is I was going to have these things take place, obviously in different locations. So they were walking almost as if they're walking down a line, but at different points in the line, these things happen because I'm going to label those things like, you know, with the name. But like, for example, like this, like, let's say like there's like a line that goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. I did something like that, right? But then at like point 1 would be like unrestrained, nothing. So then everything would be having to bind to like point 1. But I would just label point 1, like it would be labeled like, you know, chamber or whatever. But it doesn't need to be like, I don't need to put like a bunch of detail into the fact that it's that, you know? And then there'd be like point 3 would be like, you know, restraint and tail shocks. I wonder like how much would it go up for just a tail shock? I just wonder if a tail shock is it like a high arousal? Is it a medium arousal situation? How shaken are they by one tail shock? Well, anyways, this is how I was gonna do it. Like so then it'd be like, you know, the binding would be something like 3 labeled as restraint. I don't know, something like that. Medium arousal group, they didn't even move places. They were just in the same place doing the same thing. Like they were not in the same place. They were just like place, baseline, and then they were like, I'm gonna do like a number thing. So like almost like 1 baseline and then like 1 stimulation. So I mean I could just have them move to a different location and get medium arousal. Like 3 stimulation and then back to 1 for baseline again. Here, my really hot, cool, interesting, like well-traveled, politically educated, iconic advisor is actually going to give me more information here. My PI with computational psychiatry and trauma experience. So, what the tactile stimulation should give you. Okay, so I can enrich the scenario, and that's not bad. How to implement it cleanly. That's what I was gonna do. That's what I was trying to get across to it. So I'm gonna have a medium group, having a medium like simulation, like medium amount. I don't think it matters that much they're not doing the exact same thing because I'm just looking at those percentages. So it's not, I mean, I know it's like not perfect, but I think it's more about like those numbers. Obviously, like I think there's like some issues with that, but like for example, like maybe there's something about restraint stress and you know stuff like that. But for the sake of the experiment, like I think it doesn't really matter too much. So I'm gonna have the medium group. Basically, they're gonna be in their baseline place. They're also gonna move to like a different location. They're gonna move to a new location, and in that location, so we're gonna go back here. Basically, instead of getting tactile stimulation, I was gonna do that because I feel like it's a little bit more comparable to the study. Because I feel like it's a little bit more aligned. So, you know, when one they're getting tail shocks and the other they're getting touch. I will say though, for this one, in the touch, it went up to like 150-ish%, which isn't that far off, I would say, from, well, honestly, I think it probably is just because the changes are so minute that, yeah, I think that's fine. So they'll just get brushed on the neck. So they're gonna get like strokes. Gonna be like, I guess like strokes, neck. You know what? That's actually helping me too because this means that I was like, how is there going to be enough for them to code in this one? So it's going to be, but they're getting tail shock. So it's going to be something like restraint plus shock plus tail. I wonder if like just the idea of it being intermittent, like would they remember that? Could that be like a detail essentially? 168%. And yeah, so restraint, there's like a little bit more meat to the memory now, you know. In real life, I think you'd also like in theory, I'm not going to actually include this. For a human being, it would also be like, you know, fear, like I was afraid, or like trapped. It's not that unrealistic to how the rat feels, but the ACH is essentially like supposed to be accounting for that. Like, can I include that? Restraint, track, tail, intermittent, trapped. I don't know. We'll see. It's getting quite complex. And then this one would be like new location, like strokes, neck. They actually froze or stayed alert, tried to avoid, or did some kind of stress coping thing. That could be a part of the memory too. This is like now it's getting really into the trauma and stuff, and like how do I capture all the different things that a rat could remember about that experience? How would they remember that experience? How would they process that experience? Is like a complicated question. Like obviously I think it would just be like fear, but I think the ACH is kind of like accounting, but fear or like discomfort. I think for the sake of this, I don't know if I really have to. I think it gets a bit tricky with that. That's like a fine line because like are the rats cognizant of their fear in that sense? I don't know. I don't know, but I imagine that they would they even remember it like that? Just to end this on a more interesting note. So this was the original like ACH Dynamics little thing that it made me. I put everything in the chat GPT that I wanted. So everything updated. The ACH threshold was updated. The I basically explained everything. So make it swoop rather than just straight up, gradually decrease to 149. And then, you know, I just put everything in there that should be in there just to see what it looked like. And before, after, look how different it is now, right? Obviously, this is not perfect because who knows, maybe it was 193 and then it went like straight down, you know, something. But this is essentially like this just looks much better than before. It's again still not perfect, but it's different by a lot. Look at the activity here in the C3 to C1 here, and then look at this one. It's quite different, actually. That's interesting. I need to understand why. But yeah, just to end on like an interesting note, just to show you like how the little graphs are changing over time. So yeah, this has been quite a lot of thinking. It's been quite a lot of work. There's like a lot to think about. This was a very long work session. It's a good chance it's going to be a long video, but I think this is probably one of the more important. Like now it's really getting into like the depth of the project, and I'm feeling a lot better. Like this is actually like getting really precise, and like there's really interesting things to explore as well. So I think that's going to be really interesting, and I'm like insanely curious about how this is going to process for the rats. What's interesting is that obviously if their acetylcholine levels are that high after they leave 193%, they are not in consolidation phase at all. So the rats, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I think it's gonna go like how I think it is. Like how I think is that the rats when they are in like the rats that are getting that media, like just like getting stroked on the neck, right after like after they leave that situation, the researchers measured and the ACH didn't really go up. They didn't catch that. So they just got the stimulation and then they left and immediately like it went down. So they could immediately enter consolidation mode. Meanwhile, my rat my little rats that are not real, my little fake rats, or the rats in the project that had that extended stress, they actually their stress levels went up to 193%. And then it took them like a while to get back down to baseline amounts. You know, like it took them a while to get back down to that baseline. And I'm going to assume that if they're at baseline, they can consolidate. Like, I think that changes my numbers too. If they're at baseline, they can consolidate because the baseline that they took from the rats, it's pretty equivalent to what a consolidation phase would be. So quiet wakefulness, I think is what the phrase is. And like non-REM sleep, a lot of the rats were like sleeping and stuff. So their baseline, that 100% is going to be the consolidation amount. And I will say that my other rats never went back 100% to baseline. I am going to try to implement like a touch of randomness. So maybe some of them did, like whatever. I need to figure out how many rats are. I don't know. Something like that. But, or not. Maybe I'll just make it like one rat. I definitely want to get some kind of average. It's a bit of a weird study. Like it's not weird, like bad weird, but I think I haven't seen a study like this yet, though I'm sure it exists. So it's kind of like what's the line? Like how many rats do I want to have? I guess I have to get averages in the same way that a normal study would get averages. Things like that I think I'm having to think about right now. But yeah, it's gonna be quite interesting. And it's like, yeah, my inescapable stress rats in the whole course of the experiment never made it back down to the baseline amount. So what's going to consolidate for them? So yeah. Wait. Last thing. I'm too inspired today. Started off in such a bad mood, but like now I'm in a good mood. So I think that let's see how many rats they actually had in how many rats did they have in the normal study? I am honestly feeling like quite a bit of difference having pro rather than free. Like I feel like my answers were just much like my questions were much better answered overall. So I'm glad that I have this for the last piece of the study. Um, that's funny. I was like making all these criticisms of ChatGPT, but I was using the free version. I didn't know it was that. I mean, I didn't know that it was that much better for pro. So an escapable stress study, but I couldn't afford to pay 20 a month for this anyway. So I'm glad I didn't know because I didn't feel like the pressure to be like, oh, okay. So an escapable study, the one with the restraint tail shocks, they used 12 rats in total. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually also have 12 rats for each thing. We're going to do that by essentially, we're going to have like randomness, like we're going to incorporate randomness, like a touch of randomness, because obviously all these numbers were averages, but within that sort of like, within that little frame, and then, so each time basically the numbers could be within like a range. And then we're going to measure that across 12 rats in each section, in each type. And then so we're basically gonna run the neural network 12 times for each like framework. I'm really inspired today. Like I'm feeling really energized for this project today. So obviously I don't yet have like the information, but we're just for me to feel like a little bit of organization or whatever, we're gonna rename these notebooks. So this is gonna be the high arousal. I might actually get it into the code that it's gonna run 12 rats. This is gonna be like in the code, and then I want it to give me the info for each rat. I don't know. I don't actually know because I want to probe the rats, probe the different rats and see what they remember maybe. But so this is gonna be the high arousal rats. We're gonna have, let's rename this one. We're gonna have the medium arousal rats. And then I'm just gonna have like the baseline rats. I think that's it. High arousal rats, medium arousal rats, baseline rats. That's all of my rats. Okay. So we basically need, I need to organize this whole thing, but you know what? Let's go. I'm so inspired today. Like I'm so energized for this. This is like crazy. I've been working on this like all day. We're actually going to dedicate a page to each rat, and then we're going to have the baseline. Okay, so we have baseline rats, we have medium, and we have high. Those are our three, and then so 12 rats. Okay, I don't need to show you this part that much, but basically each one is just going to start being a little list of like the numbers of everything. So, for example, the high arousal, we're just going to paste these numbers. Okay, so for this last thing I'm going to show you guys, but so this is all the rats. So baseline, 12 rats. They're only going to be in the plexiglass cage, and it's going to be just 100% acetylcholine levels. Maybe, yeah, 100%. We have medium. So with medium arousal rats, they're going to be at their baseline place at 100%. New location is going to be strokes, neck, discomfort, 150%. And then the baseline place back to 100%. And I'm going to make sure that at 100%, they can encode, actually, because given everything that I read, they should be able to get 100%. Or not encode, consolidate. And then in high arousal, it's what I've already shown. So the 100% baseline, and then restraint and tail shocks. And then release, and then within the hour back to baseline, but with that still that slight increase. Okay, now we're done. Okay, there we go. That's everything for now. I want to leave and like I want a sweet like cake or something. I feel like I earned it today. I worked really hard on this today, and I just I'm gonna let everything sit. I'm probably gonna work on it tomorrow. So it's kind of scary. Like it's shaping up now, truly a lot. So okay, bye. Significantly less important just because we're kind of nerding out today. I feel like I've just been in the mood to think about psychology today, like a lot. And I wanted to discuss the fantasy proneness concept. That's been like a side plot of like this project. This is just like an initial like just free form exploration. I'm not claiming to be like some kind of like super duper expert on this scale or anything. The reason obviously that I've been doing this whole study is because um I really didn't I mean obviously just for myself, but also didn't really like this line of thinking in psychology that basically said that people with recovered memories of abuse and things like that were basically fantasy prone individuals, that the memories that they were coming up with were not actually real memories. The recovered memories were not actually real. It was all more likely a sign that they were fantasy prone and that they were confabulating the memories. So the memories that they were basically recovering were all just like these imagined stories, and because they had a tendency to like think that things that were fantasy were real, the memories were not real. And they basically the fantasy model people basically said that they thought that if people that the memories were all essentially fake, and that if people were to actually look at objective trauma, that the dissociation symptoms, like they would see that people with objective trauma, like trauma that has been actually recorded, didn't have dissociation. Only the people that, so like it's not real, like the dissociation symptoms. I wanted to take a look at the fantasy proneness scale. And there's like a few different scales that measure fantasy proneness. I just want to react to it a little bit, and tell you guys my thoughts on fantasy proneness, particularly as someone who yeah, dealt with the ramifications. Okay, I was actually told in a particular legal setting, I don't know, justice setting, that I was essentially accidentally making up trauma for a really misogynistic reason that I don't know if I should say, if I'm allowed to say, but there's a very extremely misogynistic reasoning in a certain particular context that I am not technically allowed to say. I was told that I was confabulating memories by people who had no psychological training, were not psychologists, barely knew the basic mechanics of trauma, actually, at all. So how on earth would they be justified nor like have the experience to reasonably say anything like that? I don't know. That's why I think in certain contexts we need to have people that are actually trauma informed. Doubt they ever read the scale, doubt they ever read any psychological scale, because none of them are trained in psychology. So how on earth would they have the actual experience to say something like that? They don't. That's the problem with those systems. But anyways, just to keep things, didn't say any specifics, nobody knows what I'm talking about, right? But in that context, that was essentially said of me. And so that's why I was really, when I saw this actually in like actual psychology, I was like, oh, this is messed up. This is crazy messed up that people are saying this. And that's not to say, okay, the idea of fantasy proneness, there's a scale that certain people are more prone to fantasizing or to having really immersive fantasies. I don't deny the fact that there is probably like, a bit of correlation, because a lot of times this is the thing, is that basically like there's a lot of people that in response to trauma start to dissociate by fantasizing. You get a lot of kids that say they maladaptive daydream. A lot of people end up doing that kind of stuff because of stressful experiences in childhood. So I think it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg situation, okay? Like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because obviously like people were doing this in response to the trauma, So it's like, yeah, that might be like they did tend to do that. Then again, children don't have a lot of people, for example, with dissociative identity disorder, they had trauma since they were children. Children don't
play and imagination is like one of the main things that children, I mean, that's like one of the main tools they have. What are they going to do? Become an alcoholic? They can't. Like, what else is a child supposed to do? So if you're doing that since you're a kid, it's like, well, to be fair, is that your personality, or is that that's the only tool that you had when you were a child and then you just kept doing it? That's the first thing, because they're trying to say it's like a personality tendency, right? But for example, as a child, I thought that the dolls, teddy bears, and stuffed animals that I played with were living creatures. Maybe it does speak to a tendency in a child, but it's like also I don't know. It's like, okay, so I strongly believed in the existence of dwarves, elves, and other fairy tale figures. Then again, okay, I'm just gonna tear into it for fun. Okay, take what you can from what you want from it. For example, are we gonna say that all children who believe in Santa Claus, are they fantasy prone? Are they fantasy prone individuals? There's just little stuff like that where when you're a kid, adults encourage you to see that kind of stuff as real sometimes because they think it's cute. They want you to believe in magic. So it's also a little bit complicated. Obviously, you get older. If somebody's 13 years old and still believes in fairies, that's a little bit more complicated, right? But it's like if you're a child and you believe in fairies and elves, my parents literally made me believe in fairies for fun, for me, right? They essentially like they'd set up little things where like, oh, fairies brought you gift. I was really into fairies. Like fairies brought you little gifts, and like, oh, look, this little tea set was left by the fairies. So it's like, it's like, okay, it's a little bit cultural too, and it's like contextual to childhood, I would say. And then I could very easily identify with the main character of a story and or a movie. Would that really say something about you confabulating memories? I'm not quite sure that it would personally. I think that some of these things are like it's just a bit complicated to say that this is what's making people recover memories. And then I need to actually understand the scale, because they're saying that are they saying devoting time to a musical instrument, dancing, acting, or drawing makes you fantasy prone? So just being artistic now makes you like less believed in a trauma context. Um, but look, okay, as a child, I was encouraged by adults to indulge myself in fantasies or daydreams. We all encourage our kids to believe in Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, all this stuff. I think that's a little bit also like a cultural context and the culture that we've created around childhood. So it's a little bit difficult to say that that would be a solid reason for somebody not for somebody confabulating memories of trauma. I think there's a very big difference there. This one I understand. So I had the feeling that I was someone else. I think that's a pretty good indicator of something like a dissociative identity disorder. Okay. Okay, so for example, many of my fantasies have a realistic intensity. That one I think is more understandable, though. Can they still understand that that's not actually, I think the main question is, can you identify that something is reality versus fantasy, and that's all we need to know. Personally, I think it's like, yeah, I have really intense fantasies, but I don't know. But then I understand, because then you get in a trauma context and it gets more complicated. But that's just my thinking. I know this is a bit silly, okay, but also like I'm gonna tear it apart just because I think we put too much stake in the fact that this would make you confabulate memories of trauma, where it's like I'm not fully convinced personally. See, like I often confuse fantasies with real memories. Okay, I understand that one, but I feel like they're okay. This is also, I feel like they're kind of almost discriminating against creative people. And I understand maybe that makes you more likely to develop something, but it's also, I don't know, like uncreative people can't also. I just feel like it's a little bit more complicated than that. Also, when I perceive violence on television, I get so into it that I get really upset. I kind of feel like that's just empathy. Um, Personally, I can't imagine somebody not looking at violence on television and getting like if you're watching someone get like killed, or watching somebody like, I don't it just feels a little bit like, I don't know. Also, it almost feels like the a reflection of a society that has a little bit of a stigma towards empathy, or towards like, I don't know, but it just feels a little bit like, okay, these are the tendencies that make that the fantasy model people are looking at to say, well, you are probably confabulating your memories because you're probably like this, where I think that this is already like a complicated scale in the first place, just in general. So I don't feel convinced that that would be something to actually make you confabulate trauma memories. Is something really like specific and intense. I think that's not Personally, I don't really like it. I know this isn't the best analysis, but I'm just giving like a reaction. I don't know. When I imagine I've eaten rotten food, I really get nausea. Okay, I get it. It's like you're the things you imagine feel real, but it's like um yeah. Also, some of these I'm like, okay, what? I often have the experience of thinking of someone and soon after that particular person calls or shows up. Then it's not, is that a fantasy? Like you think somebody's gonna come and then they do come. Isn't that just like a bit of intuition as well? I mean, I understand like why they would like it's not like, oh, I have a really strong feeling that someone is gonna come, but they don't come, but the feeling is still really intense anyways. This isn't a fantasy. People do also have good intuition. Like people can have gut feelings. There's people with really good intuition in the world. So is that really does that make you fantasy prone in reality? I don't know that it does. Also, this one really gets me. During my life, I've had intense religious experiences which influenced me in a very strong manner. I This is me coming from my comparative literature experience. We definitely need to have a better we need to have a better understanding and like just a better delineation, I think, in psychology between um I know that not everybody believes in religious experiences, but a lot of people do, and I think that it's complicated to say that those people are fantasy prone. Also, I think that it depends in a cultural context. For example, someone who has some kind of trance ritual experience or magical experience, obviously we would say that they like we would be more likely to call them fantasy prone, but that's also a cultural thing, right? Because we're more likely to have a stigma towards a religion that we don't really have much experience with. Meanwhile, somebody being like, I felt really moved by getting communion in my Christian church, I don't think that people are as likely to see you as fantasy prone personally. Obviously, this is self-directed, so somebody would have to be the one to say, yes, I have had an intense religious experience. But again, I don't like the idea of positioning religion or spirituality in a psychopathology context. For I know that I understand why that tendency is there, and I do think that there's overlaps, but I don't think that it's like I don't 100% feel good about somebody, like, you know what I mean? It's like I think that we definitely need to have a better like a more of a think from like a um cross-cultural perspective or something about what how to connect, like how to relate to religiousness and to relate to spirituality, because I know that not everybody has that kind of faith or not everybody has religious experiences, so it's really easy to say, well, that's sort of like a fake thing, or people who are fantasy prone would believe in religion, but it doesn't make it not extremely real for people, and I don't think that that makes them fantasy prone. There are a lot of really rational people that are also extremely religious. It doesn't mean that they have this tendency to themselves. I think religion is, we can agree that's quite a different thing, and I don't feel good about that being there personally. Um, some of these others I understand. Like I understand, okay, when I sing or write something, I sometimes have the feeling that someone or something outside myself directs me. That is definitely dissociative, definitely. So I understand that one. Um, but just to have an intense religious experience, I'm not fully convinced that that is like a good marker of of a dissociation. Personally speaking, I know that like it's like a bit complicated, but I just don't think that that's a great marker personally. So I just think that it's a really complicated, like it's just a complicated scale. It doesn't mean that it's not good, or that it can't show us something about something, but I think that it's not appropriate or correct to put that in the context of telling people that their abuse memories are fake because they thought their dolls were real when they were a kid and all this stuff, or to just assume, because it's not like they tested all these people to say they were all fantasy prone. I'm gonna like, I've read plenty of studies that showed that also that's not necessarily an exact correlation. Just because you're fantasy prone, you know, just because you have recovered memories doesn't mean you're fantasy prone. That's why I'm doing the study in the first place. I don't think that it's an appropriate way for us to approach trauma memories at all. At all. I don't think that that's appropriate, and I think that it's harmful. It doesn't mean that there can't be an overlap, but it's definitely much more than that, and that's what I don't like about that idea, that people are going to call people with dissociative disorders fantasy prone. I don't find that appropriate. Like all of them, okay. No, definitely not. I don't think that that's true. And I think that there's so much more to that issue. And yeah, I just don't find it appropriate. And I think honestly that there's a lot of nuance to this scale, and that there's a lot of iffy places. Like I said, we encourage, I mean, they say it, but we encourage kids to have, like, you know, how about, like I said, I believed in Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy. Am I fantasy prone? Like, no, because you have people like encouraging that. And we do encourage kids to believe in magic. We do encourage kids to believe in fairies and all these things until they get older, right? And it's like, that doesn't mean, imagine someone being like, okay, let's see if your trauma is real. Do this scale. And then they do this scale and it's like, okay, actually, like your trauma is probably not real because you're fantasy prone. And it's like, but it's so complicated, you know? A religious person living in a culture that encourages kids to believe in things, you know, it doesn't, I just don't think it sits right with me fully. And again, it's not a bad scale per se, but I don't think that we should use it in a context like that, to the just in the intensity that people have been using it. It's just not right, which will hopefully be shown in my study. But yeah, I don't like it. Okay, that's just been like a final mini blurb to this video. Just wanted to like put it out there because it's been like a side theme.